Wirth Watching. 56 years and counting.
56 years. We are so excited to have you joining us on this edition of Wirth Watching. I'm Sarah Murphy here with Craig Wirth. Craig, we're excited to take a look back tonight.
We're going to take a look back. You know, Utah is a landlocked state.
Oh, yeah.
In case you didn't know that.
You know, we need a refresher.
We love
sometimes.
water, and we love to do things in water and around water. So today, let's take a look at water skiing. It was a time I actually jumped over a water ski jump, and well, the ending wasn't so great. Saltair, now Saltair was as elegant as a place there ever was. The Wonder Resort. I bet you didn't know, on 7th East in Salt Lake City, you drive out to the about 27th South, wonderful amusement park out there with water. And in Morgan, Como Springs, there was only one Como Springs.
Okay, so what are we starting with?
Well, let's start with water skiing. Let's get that over with.
We want to see this one, Greg.
It was just a little too painful to watch each time, so let's get that over.
Okay.
Then I can settle down and we can do some real stuff here.
Roll the tape.
Okay, you're going to be a champ. Well, you better look like one. You wear a green suit instead of those old cutoffs and a t-shirt. You need a fancy colored ski, blue life jacket, and yes, red gloves. I size up the competition. The object here is to cut around a bunch of buoys. Ah, he makes it look easy. My turn. Made the first. How about that? Near miss on the second. Oh, El Stinko on the third. Is this the end? Of course not. Have you ever seen one of my features in 20 seconds before? There's more to ski. Look over there, jumping. All right. First, though, better find out how to do it.
Slightly arch forward in your hips. Okay, right there. So you're right, perfect. Just freeze that position as you hit the ramp, and with your chin up, and you'll ski away from it. How's that?
Now, one power burst and some fancy editing later, we're on the water.
Okay, position, position, freeze, freeze, freeze. That's it. That's it.
Ah! What went wrong? Oh, I see. The ski shouldn't be the last thing to hit the water. Well, since I hit on the head, there's nothing wrong. Sure, I'll try again. Looking good. Looking. Oh, my. Ugh. No, you're going to have to see this again. I want you to share in the pain of doing the splits at 30 miles per hour. Why didn't I listen to you, Mom, and take that desk job after all?
I can't. You guys, I need you to know at home that entire time Craig is making comments about his hair and his sideburns every 30 seconds, and that was the best part of watching that. Such a good one.
I know. It was a time I didn't, you know, I looked like a bum, I skied like a bum, and all that kind of stuff.
Does it bring you pain, though, like looking at it back? Like
that did bring me pain. Now, a lot of times you can do things and kind of fake your way through it. You can't fake your way through doing the splits, I can tell you that.
Not at 30 miles per hour.
I think you could understand
Good
that.
video, though. Made for good video. We're glad we saw that one.
You know, now in a little more genteel look at things. Saltair. Saltair, 50 years ago, it burned to the ground, but before that, it was incredible.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. I just saw Craig Wirth water ski. How are we going to top that one? But you've got a good one coming up,
well, you know, people used to flock to the Great Salt Lake by the thousands, particularly in the summer. It was float like a cork. It's where Salt Lake City relaxed. It was really, really cool, and it burned down 50 years ago, the old Saltair.
The low water at the Great Salt Lake has left eerie memories. They stretch across a seemingly endless beach. They are the remains of 7,000 pillars that held up Saltair, a place of grandeur, a place of fun, and a dance floor that once held 10,000 people for Glenn Miller.
The big thing was to go there on a date. Oh, were you ever rich and good if you could go there on a date? You were king for a date.
But this is not a story about the grand days. Those were our stories we showed last month. This is about when what they called the Great Salt Queen took her final bow 50 years ago this week. You see, Saltair had closed, and it had a haunted look, and scary low-budget films didn't help that image. There had been ambitious plans to restore it. Former manager Art Teese pleaded with the public in 1967.
For 6 years now, private and organizations have tried to restore the Great Salt Queen. Her 7,000 wooden pilings, once submerged in water, now rot and decay far above the level of the lake.
People who loved the place put their love and labor into it. The thousands of broken windows, the grand roof over what was once the grand ballroom floor. But they had done it before. You see, in 1925, Saltair had burned to the ground. A fire so spectacular that it was shown over and over and over in movie theaters. And it had been rebuilt. But on a stormy November night, exactly a half-century ago, this time it would be different. There would be no more rebuilding. Arsonists lit up the dance floor. It burned for 3 days. There was no water to even try to put it out. But it became quite the show once again. It happened just as television news was really coming on strong. Portable cameras and gutsy young reporters ran onto the crumbling boards over those rotting pillars. My brother Barry was the Channel 4 reporter. He told me maybe that wasn't the smartest thing to do in 1970.
There was a lot of heat, there was a lot of noise, there was a lot of pop and sizzle, but I think just the magnitude of that fire, there was quite an adrenaline rush for the reporters that were covering the fire, and I probably have a little bit of trouble separating the physical reality from the adrenaline rush. It was really an exciting fire to cover.
So just because the lake had receded, the flames grew by the hour and by the day. Reporters were running around the fire all on their own.
The nearest payphone 10 miles away.
Saltair had the dubious honor of being Salt Lake's biggest building blaze and TV news event, all at the same time. There were no live shots then, but reporters didn't need them. You could see the fire from all over town. And thus all that's left from the original Saltair are these old pillars encrusted in salt. Well, out here on the windswept sand of what used to be the Great Salt Lake, we remember a night in November of 1970 when the lake was also way out there. The night when no one could really do anything but watch it all burn.
Wow, it really is just kind of captivating, mesmerizing video.
It was the biggest fire up to that time, probably still the biggest building fire. And, you know, we all knew the story of the dancing, of the swimming, of floating like a cork. But somehow I like to emphasize the fire just because it was the end of what we called the Lady of the Lake. And it would never come back. People always thought, can we do it? Can we build it again? And they were almost on the verge of doing that, and of course it was an arson fire, and that ended that dream. And we've had a lot of dreams. You know, we had a lot of resorts. That was kind of the interesting thing again around water. And one of my favorite was just located right in Salt Lake City, right along 7th East. We could take a look at that. I think that was fascinating.
Okay, we'll have more on that when we return. Stay with us. We've gotten a wonderful glimpse so far of some of the moments Craig has remembered across his career, and we're going to keep that going tonight, Craig.
Oh, there are some things I remember.
A lot of things, a lot of really good things.
You know, you drive along 7th East in Salt Lake City, and you know where the Nibley Golf Course is?
Yes.
You go there. Now, imagine a full amusement park where that golf course is. Can you imagine that?
No, how
And
cool.
not only just an amusement park, an incredible place that dated back to 1922. And before that, it was even another amusement park.
A lot of history.
A lot of history. Let's take a look.
Nibley Park is Utah's oldest public golf course. It dates back to 1922. But we go back before that. We go back to when it was the magnificent Windermere Amusement Park. What a place. 2 lakes were at the center of the fun, and a contraption called a shoot the chute that sent a boat sliding down a track and then had it slam into the water. Great fun. 30 years ago, I ran into a few golfers who remembered.
We'd go up on that boat and we'd zip down that ramp.
And down the boat would go and shoot off into the water, and that was over there in those trees.
Yeah, and we'd hit the water and splash all over, and I thought it was great, of course.
For those wanting a bit less adventure, there were rowboats and a place to park them while you took a stroll. You could imagine what a peaceful place this was. The old cottonwoods still give you a chance to think about the past use of this land. There was a complicated lock system that brought a person from one lake to another.
There was a iron wheel this big around that you could pull and turn, and it would move the door back and forth.
And at night, operas such as this, the HMS Pinafore, filled the lake air with song on a stage that floated over the lake, an amazing place. Now it's a lake that runs along the first hole of the golf course. A centerpiece was the Great Bridge, done in elegant lattice work and adorned with flowers on each end. As the paper said, it was a good time at Windermere, where a jolly crowd spends a pleasant day at the pretty resort. Beautiful Windermere, even nicer when you could save the 25-cent admission, like when the Newsies were given tickets, or like the Arback Department Store Day in 1913. 40,000 showed up. Yes, that was 1/3 of the whole town. This was a fancy place. And believe it, you dressed up to come here. Whether you were a young boy crowded into the line for the shoot the chute, or if you were here for a picnic lunch. And it was a great place for lunch. Oh, but it wasn't all a quiet place of peace. Somewhere out there, buried by the golf course, was this, a motorcycle racetrack. Advertised at 100 miles in 100 minutes, over 1,500,000 feet of lumber. Professional racers roared around the track, while 3,000 fans stood above them and cheered. Riders burned rubber around the steep banks. Motorcycle racing was the rage, and it went well into the night under the lights.
As you can see, the bank is a little higher up here. I suppose that was the top of the race, and it went right on around.
The town had its favorites. Who could catch the Windermere Speed Merchant? It was for keeps, lots of money and dirty tricks. There was the famed race, where one racer had a sawed axle brake in a mystery designed to practically kill him. I must have been something. Everything from motorcycle racing to opera, all day and night, and thousands of people, all 100 summers ago. Crowds got here by streetcar. It was the end of the line and pretty much the outer limit of Salt Lake City. And then it was the end of Windermere Park. By 1922, it was a golf course and a memory.
How neat is that? I loved the shots of them walking along on the golf course, explaining what it must have looked like back in the day.
You know, I'm a terrible golfer, but now I can't play that course at all because I'm sitting there looking up there at where the motorcycle and then
what
trying
it
to
must
hit
have
the
looked
ball.
like. Okay, I wrote jolly crowd, pleasant day. You know, when the headlines are referring to it as that's a big deal. Jolly crowd and a pleasant day, not bad.
Yeah, I just remember that when you get the news.
Jolly crowd and pleasant day.
It was a jolly crowd and a pleasant day today.
Next time.
Yeah, no, we look at these things and we we just imagined, and they probably thought it would never end. Yeah, it would be like Disneyland.
It would be like that forever
ending
and ever.
up as, I don't know, a Walmart or something.
Yes.
You just don't think these things are going to end, but they do. And speaking about one thing that ended that nobody ever thought it was the gem of Morgan Valley, Como Hot Springs. Another place that has a lot of ghosts to go.
Okay. Okay, we've got one more really good one we're excited to share with you tonight, Craig.
This is called Como Springs. And another thing, when you drive up to Morgan, and Morgan's a great place.
Yes.
You go up that canyon, it's just gorgeous up there. And you look out and you'll see just a few little old pipes and some water and a few things. That was something. It was a dream. It was Como Springs. And we had dozens and dozens of resorts like that. This is one you can still kind of get an idea of the fun, almost hear the noise of the dancing, people eating hot dogs. You know, it was delightful, Como Springs.
Como Springs, where you could swim in the pool or dance half the night.
Pat's Irish Five were playing the music, and it was fun.
And the late Emma Mills Hardy knew those memories of the 20s and 30s when she talked to me 20 years ago.
Down here you had the boating, up here you had the swimming.
The Ogden papers said Como Springs stands as the gem of the Morgan Valley, and it was all from beautiful hot springs. Cool Como Springs in towering Rockies beckons to tourists. You could rent a risque swimming suit and plummet down giant slides. The suits were a dime, a towel a nickel. Yes, at a time, public swimming became the craze in America. The Heiner family owned the place. Al Heiner says the family hand-built great places for the masses to stay.
Back in the early era, in the 20s and 30s, they had 40 little cabins they had for people to stay in. And they just one cabin and just a bed in them.
Well, it seems the overnight guests wanted bathrooms too, so they built a motel, and it was now a full-service resort. A 1927 newspaper beckoned folks to spend 4 glorious days around the 4th of July. Boating, swimming, camping, dancing, trout and chicken dinners, and if you needed more, parades, an airplane stunt show, boxing, more dancing, and weenie roast. The best 4 days of your life. They also put in a merry-go-round, but nothing matched the swimming. Well, except for the hot dogs.
The hot dog stand was the center of attraction back in those days. That you really had to, everybody wanted hot dogs at Florine and Nola Cook.
It simply was a great place for early Utah folks to go. It's where folks learned to swim. And best of all, there was plenty of shade at Como Springs. Oh, it lasted up into the 1980s with the slides, the pool, and the picnic tables, even the skating and the dancing. But by now, that 1936 dance hall was getting old, and a fire had destroyed the great restaurant in 1980. Like many local amusement parks, its time was over.
Do you ever wish that you could roll the time back and spend one more day running through here?
It would be fun to roll it back and just really have it like it used to be.
And one of the last of the Heiner family to have worked at the gem of the Morgan Valley also has wonderful memories of Como.
I miss it because it was such a neat place for people to come.
All from Magic Hot Springs.
Okay, why am I missing something that I wasn't even here for? That is so cool.
Yeah, if you think about now in summer, look at what do you do on the weekend? We go outside. At that time, we went out all together, whether it was to salt air, whether it was to Windermere Park, whether it was to Como Springs or Sarasota, all these various places that we had in Utah, we just went out, and water was such an important part of it. I wonder too, well, just like you do, how did that all change from the 50s? And now I guess we go to the canyons, which is wonderful.
Which is true. I know. Don't get me wrong. It's great. It's just different.
It's just very different.
Yeah.
And we just, I guess, look forward to summer when you could go out and play in the water. America has changed.
Yes.
We often think it hasn't. It really has on how we enjoyed ourselves. And it was to go do things as families, to go things as community. Not that we don't do all of that, but we do it just a lot different. And those swimsuits.
Oh, man. Wow. Those were something.
I know. I did. I debated whether I should put that film on. I mean,
you should have put a warning on that, Craig.
After all, you could still see their ankles. And I was a little worried about that.
But it is so nostalgic. And it's like, I mean, you've been doing this a long time, 5+ decades. So you mentioned it. You've seen how things have changed, and not in a bad way, just different.
Just different. And I think we do wonder, where would we have done that? Would we have done that? Would you have gone to Como Springs?
Oh, in a heartbeat. How cool was that? And the Saltaire and Windermere, all of them. That's so cool.
But would you have gone over the water ski jump?
That one, I don't think I could do it justice like you did. We will leave that one for you, Craig Wirth. What a good experience, and thank you for taking us back. Such a privilege to watch over some of your stories.
This is so much fun to do. To remember things, isn't it?
We love to do it, and we love to watch some of your great stories, Craig. So thank you very much, as always.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us here. We will have more for you next time. We'll see you then.